Here we have the planter for number 4. It comprises of 10 component parts and 7 fixing pins, and it goes together in sequence. Each component is inscribed with what it is and any manoeuvring instructions for it, which aren't generally is just sliding, and it goes together in this fashion. These 2 plates go in first. Then the top sections slide into position. It's best to do the section marked right before the section marked left, simply because the fish plate arrangement in the middle, it's easier to locate this way round than it is the other way round. Everything starts off a little bit rattly, but once the rest of the components are in position, it stiffens it all up. The entire structure's on gliders, so when it's assembled and backstage and manoeuvring into position centre stage, it's easier to move around than moving it in component form all of the time. The ramp, this is used by the people being eaten, slots in. This can be a little bit tricky, but once it's there, it forms the strengthening beam for the entire structure. This is fixed in position with 4 of the hinge pins. Can be a little tricky, but it does work, and when it works, it becomes a solid structure. That's the worst of the wrestling match, is fitting the ramp, but once it's there, it holds the whole thing together. Finally, the box section of the structure can be fitted, which is the 2 base plates. Again, starting with the right side. Marvellous. The outer shell comprises of 2 parts in a very similar fashion to the number 3 planter. These can go on in either way, right first or left first. They have a trim detail on the top, which denotes the top from the bottom. That slots into there. Down here, there is another hinge, so a pin goes in there. On the left side, the same exercise, with a hinge to the base. And finally, in the centre at the top, there is a final hinge. When the pin goes in, it locks the entire structure together to become one solid movable box. Once it's positioned into your marked area on stage, this can then be carefully lowered down and is ready for the rest of the plant to be added. The final main structure of the planter is this steel mast. Now, I'll fit it now, but it's best to fit it after the lower section of the plant is in position. Simply from it's easier to then apply the top section of the plant, but this is how it goes together. Slots into 2 channels, and then there's 2 clamps which turn round and lock down the lower part of the mast. And it's quite important that these are done up well, but not over tightened, because the weight of the puppet rests entirely on these 2 brackets. Once that's in position and tightened, the whole structure is very solid and isn't going anywhere, and you won't have any stage drift if there's any steep rake on your staging. And that's the planter. So from here we apply the actual puppet, which comprises 2 components, the base section and an upper section, and then the sprawl elements from number 3 are reused with additional foliage elements added to it. And in a similar fashion to the sprawl on number 3 being attached to the puppeteer's legs, it's best to employ 2 sort of dancers or mime artists to lay on the planter and dress them with the foliage. We'll demonstrate that later on.